Oki, Danitada, Ambawestich, Tanche, Vishinakashu and Lorelei Higgins. Hello, I'm Lorelei Higgins, and it's such a pleasure to be greeting you here from Treaty 7 territory here in Calgary, Alberta. Thank you so much for being here and for joining me for this session. I wish we could engage in dialogue like we normally would in a session like this, but I'm hoping that you reach out to me after this and that I can learn about some of the incredible work that you're doing and ways that I can support it as a peace builder. So this session is peace building through Rotary Youth Exchange. So we're going to start there with my journey with Rotary, and we're going to talk about some practical tools for peace building, and hopefully we'll have some questions that I can follow up on. So let's get started. Let's go back to 1998. I was selected as a Rotary Exchange student from the Club of Spruce Grove, Alberta, and I was a very shy 17-year-old. I had never been on a plane. I had never really had much success talking to large crowds, and I definitely was not good at public speaking by any means. But by the end of the year, I was a very changed person. You can see there's a poem I wrote called A Year of Change. We won't have time to go through it today, but essentially it talks about how much my life changed and how much it meant to me to experience all the things that I did at such a young age. You can see from one of the local papers, it says South Africa impresses local exchange student. It did more than impress me. It changed my entire life and my career, and all the things that I've done since 1998, 1999. You can see there at the top with the girls I'm with, that's my basketball team. We made it to nationals and we won. You can see my school uniform there at the bottom. And you can see me holding a child that was in Soweto on a Rotary project where we were painting a hospital. And down at the very bottom, you can see my very empty blazer. I certainly did not come home that way. You can see my blazer here. This is near the end of the year. It's quite full, and I still wear it proudly as often as I can to Rotary functions. So when I was sent out on Rotary Youth Exchange, I didn't know that I was training to be a peace builder. I didn't have the language for that or the concept of what that even meant. But as I engaged with all of these amazing people who have become my lifelong friends, and I worked with community and I got to know Rotarians and the people from my school and all the different ways I interacted with society, I was learning about peace building. I was learning different languages, different points of view. I was learning resiliency, adaptability, how to relate to other people. And that definitely is the foundation for peace building. So 20 years later, I never imagined this, but I had the chance to become a Rotary Peace Fellow. It's quite a rigorous process, and I was so happy to be selected. I spent my time at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand, and it's still hard for me to believe that I actually got selected and went. I just got back last spring, and so I'm still working out all of that experience, but it was incredible and completely life-changing, and yet another program that Rotary offers around peace building. So this is my class there, incredible people doing work around the world, and we are still very much connected since last year. So far, those two experiences have really led, as I said at the beginning, to me having a career in peace building. What it looked like at the beginning was working overseas. And so right out of university, I went on an internship with Foreign Affairs to Bolivia. And from that, I went to work on projects around the world. And I worked with nonprofit organizations and the government and really worked on Indigenous human rights, international development projects, and at the core of all of that was peace building. I've now spent this part of my career in government. I work locally in municipal government here in Calgary, and I also consult for Mediators Beyond Borders. So I've definitely kept that international focus as part of the work that I do. And I really do thank Rotary for that, because at 17, once you have tasted flight, there is no going back, I always say. So what am I doing now? This is the bulk of some of the tools I want to talk about today around peace building and some of the things as Rotarians that you can access. So Rotary is in partnership with the Institute for Economics and Peace with a new program called the Rotary Positive Peace Activators. We were the first cohort, this amazing group of people to go through the program. And we just did the training in January, and we learned all kinds of amazing things around peace. And we are now in a database. So at the very end, I'm going to give you the link to that database. And we are here to support Rotary clubs and Rotary affiliated organizations to do peace building. So it's a really, really exciting program. Underlying that program is really the idea of what is peace? What does it look like? How do we measure it? What is the economic case for peace? So the next few slides are going to focus on that. And I do apologize, we won't have a lot of time to go through them in depth, but hopefully this piques your interest if you haven't had a chance to be exposed to much of this material yet. So at the beginning, peace was really defined as sort of negative peace. So it's that absence, the absence of violence or the fear of violence. The new definitions of peace really focus on positive peace and that idea of what does it take? What are the attitudes, the institutions, and the structures that are creating sustained peaceful societies? So within that, it can be broken down to pillars. We're going to get into those. That sort of that beautiful web you see on the side there. So I'm involved with the Institute for Economics and Peace as an ambassador, but also, as I mentioned, as a Rotary Positive Peace Activator. This is available online, but the newest Global Peace Index is out. And so you can see just from this quick graphic, the dark green is the parts of the world that are the highest in levels of peace. And the ones with the dark red are ones that are measuring the lowest on the scale for peace. The Global Peace Index is in its 13th year, so it's been around for a little bit. It ranks 163 countries according to their relative states of peace. And it uses 23 indicators weighed on 1 to 5 scales. It's been developed by the Institute for Economics and Peace, and there's an international panel of experts that oversee this work. So if you want to learn more about it, this is delving into the actual indicators. So there on the screen, you'll see there's measures of domestic and international conflict that go into it. There's also measures of societal safety and security, and as well as measures of militarization. So I encourage you to look online or have one of us activators come out to do a workshop, or I'll mention the Peace Academy as well. You can take to learn more of this. So for those of you who are interested in changes in peace, since 2008 into 2019, 81 countries have become less peaceful, but 81 countries have also become more peaceful. What that means overall, though, is peace has actually declined 3.78% over the last decade. So it'll be interesting to see as we continue to navigate this new pandemic era, what happens with peace. So I encourage each of you to think about what is the impact. For those of you who may be interested in what the cost of violence is, it's estimated to be that it's 14.1 trillion. That was in 2018. That really is equivalent to $1,853 US per person. And this is very interesting, but if the world decreased violence by just 10%, that would leave $1.41 trillion freed up to be directed to other economic activities. So when you're looking at the economics of peace and you start to look at what the cost of violence is, you start to see there really is an economic case for positive peace. So as mentioned earlier, underlying positive peace are pillars, and they interact as an interconnected web. So no one pillar stands alone. At the top, you have well-functioning government there. You have equitable distribution of resources, free flow of information, good relations with neighbors, high levels of human capital, acceptance of the rights of others, low levels of corruption, and sound business environment. So all of these pillars interact in a very interconnected way to contribute to positive peace. So in the studies, some of the things you'll find in there is that high levels of positive peace lead to stronger resilience, leads to better environmental outcomes, higher measures of well-being, better performance on development goals. We'll just go back here. Is it made? Oh, it's not going to show up. So we'll just keep going. So something interesting around this is COVID-19 and the layer that that adds. So COVID-19 has really showed us the importance of trust. So when you start to look at those pillars, what has COVID-19 told us around that trust and that interaction? What does that mean to peaceful societies? So you can see a little bit more, but basically, if you look at that, doing the right thing becomes even more critical during times of crises. The positive peace response to COVID-19 has been really interesting to look at. And this comes from the Institute for Economics and Peace. But really, when you look at what underlies the low levels of corruption, good relations with neighbors at the community level, well-functioning government, free flow of information, you start to see that countries that were strong in these areas have had a positive response to COVID-19. So one of the examples that the Institute for Economics and Peace went through with us that I'd like to share is from Germany. So they talked about contact tracing, for example. So that really has helped with high levels of human capital, free flow of information. You can see extensive testing has helped with equitable distribution of resources, well-functioning government. You can see some of the things around coordinated closures and containment measures has helped with free flow of information, well-functioning government, low levels of corruption, and some effective economic response has also led to acceptance of rights of others, well-functioning government. So those are some really concrete examples around COVID-19. So what does that mean for Rotary programs and peace building? That's a lot of material I just went through really quick. So feel free to redigest it, to go through the material online, and to contact me if you have questions. But really, the heart of what I want to get into is peace building and Rotary programs. So peace building seems complicated, and the slides that I went through make it seem even more so. But peace building really is everyone, every single day. This particular picture is from a project that I worked in Guyana. And these were two young kids who are older now, since I'm older. But we worked on an interesting program in the Rupununi, and it really was around leadership. And it was about how do we get youth inspired to be leaders for their communities and to not leave, but to stay in the Rupununi and to build a peaceful society, one that could endure. And so years later, I've been in touch with a lot of the youth from the program, and talking to them, they said that underlying all of the trainings that we went through, and the most important thing that they realized was how important their actions every day mattered to lead to a society that was peaceful. So one of the youth in particular had been in school in New York. He'd left and he decided to come back, and he was elected as Tushao, or chief for his village. And he is one of the leading peace builders in that region. And he speaks quite often about the importance of the everyday actions of peace building. What can you do to show up in your community to create a strong fabric? So this is another example I wanted to show you. This was a Rotary Positive Peace workshop for Calgary, Alberta. So you can see some ideas from this of how we were going to. You can see the date is March 28th. So we didn't get a chance to actually do this workshop. It's just been postponed. So we're going to reschedule it. But we had a lot of people signed up from Rotary and Rotary guests. But really that excitement around how do we understand the pillars of positive peace, and how do they relate to Rotary's 6 areas of focus? And the idea was to come with projects or to design projects in the workshop that would promote positive peace locally and globally. So that's just an example of one of the workshops and one of the things that a peace activator can help if you're a bit lost. Another example of peace building that I wanted to share, the whole point of this is just to show you that peace building is everywhere, and sometimes we don't realize that we're doing it. So one of my projects right now is the Calgary Indigenous Relations Office. And at the beginning, when I started talking about peace building, a lot of people were like, what does that mean? And I went back to the pillars and I said, good relations with neighbors. What does that mean? Well-functioning government. And I went through each of those, and I started to show that being a good relative as the city of Calgary, how that contributed to positive peace and what that meant, and to actually have an Indigenous Relations Office that was built on this foundation how that was going to contribute to an even more peaceful, positive, peace-focused Calgary. So the City of Calgary has many things underlying those pillars, and some of it has taken the place of committee work and reports, so they're just listed there for you to see. But you can see that, even at a municipal government level, how we can start to make those connections. This in particular could go under well-functioning government. In talking to City Council, they laughed when I said that. I think they had a particularly bad day of not getting along that day when I said that. Another example from the work that I've been doing during the pandemic, and I have a link to this article at the end, but I've been working with an area called Community Connections, leading that portion of the work throughout this pandemic, and really helping people connect to resources in the community. So that equitable distribution of resources, that pillar is something I've really been focusing on, and making sure that all the incredible things coming in through the municipal level are shared with those who need it, and that we're making sure that everybody has enough. So you can start to see how those things weave, and how whatever role I'm in, I'm really starting to look at positive peace and how do we contribute to that? How do we create that? And it's been really exciting to do that as I shift roles throughout my career. So this lovely woman who you see on the right there in the yellow striped vest, it says Peace 911. This is Ma'am Irene Santiago. She lives in the Philippines in Davao City, and she's the peace advisor to the mayor. So if you don't know her, look her up, Irene Santiago. She's an incredible woman. She's one of the few women in the world who sat on both sides of a peace agreement, designing it and then implementation. She's been nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. She's an incredible lady. I had a chance to spend time with her in Thailand as part of the Rotary Peace Fellowship, and we worked in the Philippines with her as part of the peace agreement in Mindanao. So Irene Santiago has been one of those people who boiled down peace building for me in a way that has completely made sense. And I hope that this strikes a chord with you. But Irene said to our class one day, peace building is not complicated. She said it's about increasing connectors and decreasing dividers. And that is certainly what Rotary does. Rotary is all about that human connection and that community and that family and that idea of we're in this together. And so when you think about peace building and you think about how it seems mystical and outside of you, and we create all of these layers, and you think, I can't do that, or I'm not doing that, or it's not big enough or grand enough. When you boil it down to that simple phrase of increasing connectors and decreasing dividers, it really puts in perspective of what peace building really is. So I hope that helps you. So some of the resources I mentioned is the Rotary Positive Peace Academy. There's the link there, the Rotary Positive Peace Activators, which I'm part of, and the Institute for Economics and Peace. So as you look to incorporate this through Rotary, and you think about how am I doing this? How can I increase what I'm doing? What am I doing? What does it all mean? The last words I kind of want to leave with you today are, think about increasing your knowledge around peace, positive and negative peace. Share this knowledge, talk about it, make it make sense, find words that make sense for you and your community. Think about hosting a workshop. The resources that I've listed there, use them. Don't be shy. And remember that peace is every person, every day, and that it really is about increasing connectors and decreasing dividers. Also, don't forget to celebrate Rotary's global leadership in peace building. Rotary really has made peace building a priority and is doing incredible things. Remember that the Rotary Youth Exchange in particular is an instrumental component of Rotary's peace building toolkit, and that it's a long-term investment. Peace building doesn't happen overnight. And sometimes you don't see the impacts for 20 years. So I am a perfect example of that. 20 years later, I can finally tell you what my Rotary Youth Exchange meant to me and the incredible impact it's had on my life and the way I see the world and the priorities that I have. So the last thing I'll leave you with is this beautiful photo. This was taken last fall. It's the Hands Across the Border ceremony. And it's in Waterton Glacier International Peace Park. And the association put this on. I had the chance to speak at this with Al Jubitz, who many of you may know, and our elder little Roy Chief Bear. And he, essentially, it was an incredible ceremony because it was focused on that idea of peace and coming together. And with hands clasped together, we voiced the pledge of peace. And it was this beautiful moment of community and sharing. And I remember standing there thinking, what a connective moment. So I encourage you as Rotarians to look at all that Rotary is doing around the world for peace building and connect to that. Find ways that you can be with people who are doing incredible programs and be inspired by them, learn from them, and don't forget to teach them the things that you're doing. Peace building really requires all of us. And it is such a privilege to be in this community and to be a peace builder alongside each of you. And I am so excited for the time when we can be together again in person. But I hope for now this recorded webinar has provided some insight. And I just want to thank every single one of you for the work that you're doing, the incredible dedication you have to Rotary and to changing lives. And if that 17-year-old girl had any idea the impact that this would have on her life, I think she would be completely stunned. So from the bottom of my heart, Marcy, thank you. And I can't wait to see you all out there again, peace building.